Hello and welcome to Fatima Today. This show is produced by the World Apostolate of Fatima, USA, Our Lady's Blue Army, and brings topics to you, our viewers, related to the events in the world today. We live in tumultuous times when logic seems to have disappeared and uncertainty hangs over us. Our hope on these programs is to address the issues of the day and find solutions through adherence to the laws of God, especially through the message of Fatima. We ask that you subscribe to this podcast.
Hello and welcome to Fatima Today, a production of the World Apostolate of Fatima, USA. This program is dedicated to bringing you news and perspective on the faith in our present day. I'm your host, David Carollo. We ask that you subscribe to this podcast. This past weekend, the Order of St. Michael of the Wing held investitures. The ceremonies were held both in Princeton and here at the National Blue Army Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima. The order dates back 850 years under the first king of Portugal. St. Michael has been the defender of the rights of God from the beginning of creation. It was for this reason that he was chosen as the patron of the order. Today, both in Portugal and worldwide, the order supports many charities, many in Africa. Here in the United States, the order works to the benefit to a great degree of the Archdiocese of the Military Services. I'm honored to have as my guest today His Royal Highness Duarte, the Duke of Braganza. He is the patron of the order. He's got a great devotion to Our Lady of Fatima and is a longtime member of the Blue Army of Our Lady of Fatima. He is also a strong advocate for the preservation of Catholic Christian culture in the world. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
So great to have you here, and it was great ceremonies this weekend with the investitures, and it's so good to see people joining the order. I think because it shows there's a desire on the part of people to support the things that we are so close to our hearts, and that is the preservation of Catholic Christian culture in this world. You're a great advocate of that. You have been in the many things you say. And just a little history, of course. You're presently the Duke. It was your great-grandfather was the last king of Portugal, I believe, right?
Last on my branch of the family.
Your branch of the family.
Because
yes.
the monarchy remained with cousins and nephews of my father until 1910, when it was a group of Navy people and some army people who made a coup.
Yes.
And exiled the royal family.
Yes.
But and after that we had the First Republic was very violently anti-Catholic, and they persecuted the church. Then there was another military coup, and then came the Second Republic, and that was very tolerant to the church, even with the Catholic people there. But we had the Prime Minister Professor Antonio Salazar,
Yes.
But then in the beginning he did a great job, but then he did not know how to live. So he stayed for 40 years as Prime Minister, and in the last years he was really a little bit outdated. And, but he kept, for instance, he was a founder of NATO.
Yes.
He was had very good relations with the United States all the time. And but finally, it was overrun because the people believed that it would be much better to have a complete democracy. Because the regime of Salazar was not a dictatorship, but was not very much democratic also. And then after that, we had a communist coup, and they took the power in Portugal. They gave quickly the independences to the Portuguese overseas territories in Africa particularly, but they gave it to the communist group.
Yes.
So it was a huge disaster, and things got very wrong. We got 2 million refugees who came to Portugal. And finally, a third military coup, but again, freedom and democracy that we have now. And the governments are very democratic, but not always as they should be.
Yeah. Well, it's an imperfect thing. Of course, democracies are just that, imperfect, as are all forms of government. And it's interesting, though. But there's one thing about Fatima, and it plays so much with with Portugal, I should say, and it plays so much with the prophecies of Our Lady of Fatima.
Yes.
And of course, you lived through it. You
Yes.
were born into it, you lived through it, and I think that's the big thing. We have my own family. We watched it, and I mean, of course, from the other side of the ocean, but we're very much involved in this apostolate, and you can see the many prophecies of Our Lady, how they played out so strongly, and right in Portugal.
Also in Portugal, Our Lady saved us from the communism.
Yes.
Because they got the power by force, and they would not allow to have elections.
Yes.
And so finally there was the 13th May, a huge 1 million persons met in Fatima, and people start looking at each other and say, okay, but the communists, in their rallies, maybe they have 50,000 persons maximum.
Yes.
We are here 1 million.
1 million.
So why are we afraid?
That's right.
And so they started liberating the country, and even in the end they would occupy the communist headquarters and throw everything out in the street and burn it out.
Yeah.
And the
Big
communists,
bonfire, I think. You said
yes,
one time.
exactly. And so, but in a party ambience, no violence, just making a huge party of it.
And people expected such violence during that period of time.
Yes.
They're so concerned about it. Our organization, of course, as we discussed earlier, possessed the icon of Kazan. And we had that beautiful icon sitting in our chapel at Domus Pachis, our hotel retreat center, as you know very well. And the first move that our people who were in my position at that time took the icon out and brought it here to New Jersey for safety, because they were afraid if the communists came in, they were going to wipe the place out. But,
it could have happened. Yes.
I remember that. Yeah.
No, most people, many Portuguese went away to Brazil and to here, everywhere, because they were quite sure the communists would take the country.
Yeah.
There was already 3,000 persons in jail for political reasons.
Yeah.
But I was quite sure that it could not happen.
Yeah.
And in fact, after the communists delivered Angola and Mozambique and Guinea to the local communist parties, it calmed down the situation. And particularly after the 13th May, after the huge pilgrimage to Fatima.
I think they saw, and not unlike in 1917, the communist government saw the faith of the Portuguese people.
Yes.
Coming to Fatima, turning to Our Lady, which is something we as an apostolate obviously are promoting. Turn to Mary, turn to her, because this is what happened in I have, of course, the great, the miracle of the sun. How many people came, and how many people came just to destroy everything. They came to say, see, look, this is nothing, and look what happened. And I think that's the faith of the people was too much to overcome.
You have there the copy of the newspaper of that day,
yes,
where the journalist was there to contradict and to say this is all a fraud and makes no sense.
Right.
And then he became absolutely convinced.
Yeah, that's it. He's speaking of the. I don't have it in the camera view, but it's the article in O Século, and he was sent there that day to do a hatchet job on this whole thing. When he was going to write an article that these people were hallucinating, there was nothing, and he was converted on the spot. That miracle of the sun. So yes, that's exactly. And I mean, again, here Our Lady is working through another instrument.
Yes, exactly.
It was very interesting, and I think that's the whole story. Now, of course, you've had obviously a lifetime devotion to Our Lady of Fatima. You're a member of this organization for many years.
Yes,
you were acquainted, and your father was with our founder, John Haffert.
Since my childhood that I was very close to John Haffert and the Blue Army.
Sure.
And I think that it's the organization in the world who really did the most so that the message of Fatima is known all around the world.
Yes.
I remember to see in South Vietnam all the churches dedicated to Our Lady of Fatima, and also the Filipinos, even when they did the coup to overthrow President Marcos, their symbol for the military who were trying to get rid of President Marcos was the image of Our Lady of Fatima that the Blue Army printed.
That's right.
That they sticked it on their
On the
their
weapons.
guns.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Or here in the
And their patches.
the
Yeah,
pads,
yeah.
yes.
So
You could see on the newspapers of the magazines of the time.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Queen of Peace.
yes, yes,
It's
exactly.
her title, Queen of Peace.
So it was a very peaceful
Yeah.
military movement. Nobody was hurt or killed, and it was very very interesting what did happen.
And I think that really you see her fingerprints on these types of things. What happened in Portugal in '74? What happened in the Philippines 10 years later? What happened in Russia after the consecration?
Yes.
I mean, and many people argue that the consecration wasn't perfect, but it was accepted by heaven. Sister Lucia said that. And the fact that the Soviet Union, that flag came down on the Soviet Union, and the communist government left, without firing a shot. No one ever would have expected that. The Cold War was going to end in a hot war. We all expected that. And I think, again, you saw the hands of Our Lady. Certain things aren't perfect. We see what's going on between Russia and Ukraine today. I mean, the world is not at peace, but you see the hand of Our Lady in all these things.
Well, I went to Moscow with this very nice Filipino lady that was trying to organize a pilgrimage of the Blue Army to Moscow, but he didn't know very well how to do it. So I went with her. We visited the Patriarch of Moscow, and he invited the Blue Army to come to Russia, and he had a sort of a celebration for the Blue Army people. I think you brought something like 3 jumbo jets full of pilgrims there.
Yes, yes.
And at least 1 jumbo jet and 2 normal jets. It had on.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The Queen of the World. It was
Yes,
the
exactly.
peace flight.
Yes.
The peace flight zone, yes.
And and very soon after that, the communism started falling apart.
Well, absolutely, and I mean it truly did. It was, it's destined to fail, and I don't mean the necessarily political aspects of it. There are certainly, there's things in the communist, program that resonated with people. Let's be realistic, working people and such, and I can understand that, but it's the atheism. And when Monsignor Colgan, who founded the Blue Army with John Hafford in 1947, he called from his pulpit at his church here in New Jersey, for a Blue Army of prayer to counter the Red Army of atheistic communism, with an emphasis on the atheistic portion of it. And the fact that it was without God. This was going to be the kingdom of man coming out of Russia, but it was destined. And so sad, because there are more oratories traditionally dedicated to Our Lady in Russia and in any other country in the world. It was so devoted.
And also, I'm not the exact numbers, but I know that the last time I went to Russia, I visited some of the bishops, the Orthodox bishops, metropolits,
Yes.
that I know, and the Patriarch, and they told me, what Our Lady said, conversion in Russia, really happened, because in the whole area around Moscow, the whole province there, the whole territory there, only something like 20 churches remained open, and now there are something like 2,000 churches are open.
That's right. No, there is a resurgence. I've been there a number of times, spoken, and gotten to know some really very, very, really good and dedicated people. That's why what's going on there right now is so sad, because it's hurting the relationship, and it will hurt for many years, the relationship with the West. But once again, it's the act of a small group.
Yes.
Not an individual. You say Putin, no, that's okay, he's an individual, but it's that group of people that lead a country astray. And that happens, that's throughout history, I guess that's how that's happened. But sadly, it's not what the people necessarily want. Now, to a great degree, they allow it, okay, and you can argue that, but I'm sorry, because there's so many, I've met many wonderful Catholics over there.
Yes.
So many people, because there's so many people who come from Poland and Western Ukraine and Lithuania and Belarus. Well, they're culturally Catholic, and they are Catholic, and they want their faith back. They want to practice their faith. and they're able to do it there now, which is wonderful. And that's why I'm hoping that this whole situation can settle
But
to a point.
the Ukrainian government is not helping also
No.
because
No.
they put conditions for peace that they know are not acceptable, like to return Crimea to Ukraine. But the Crimeans are all Russians.
Yeah, that's
And
true,
it
yeah.
was always Russian, the territory,
Yeah. That was actually given to Ukraine by Khrushchev, if I recall.
because he was Ukrainian
Oh, that's what
and
it
he
was.
wanted to be nice with mother country.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
But this is the history. But this is, I think, it goes back, or continues with the whole cultural situation in the world today. You see that you speak often on this, and we've discussed this. This concept of how the West has become. During the communist days, the communists would slam their fist down and say, "The West is decadent. The West is decadent." You know what? They're right. Unfortunately, okay. And they've said this, and not that they're perfect either, but the fact was we are. And our culture, Our Lady said something that always resonates, and I always maybe expand on it when she said, nations could be annihilated.
Yes.
Okay. And yes, we think of nuclear conflagration, and that's always a possibility. But I think through our contraception and our abortion, I think we're doing a pretty good job of annihilating ourselves.
Exactly.
And that's where
I'm quite sure that the promotion of politics who are completely contrary of the law of God, like the LGTB politics, for example. One thing is personal options that people take. My life is like this. I feel like this. Okay, it's their own conscience. Yeah. But to try to put it on scholarships, on high schools, right, as a sort of promoting a behavior that is against nature, it makes no sense.
It's a dangerous road to go down for a society, and that is where we're at, because we have, we're kind of, we flow with the culture. But see, today, sadly, it used to be that the church and the people of faith led the society, led the culture. Well, the culture is kind of leading us now, unfortunately. Maybe because we've become a minority. I don't know. It's sad. People don't properly stand up for their faith and their beliefs, and I think that's what is so necessary for all of us to do.
No, then look, some politicians, when they do it, I'm thinking about the Hungarian government or the Polish government or even other government of countries who were under the communist regime before. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they really want to have a government who is in favor of God's rules. For instance, the Hungarian government is equally cooperating with the Catholics, Protestants, and the Jews. And they have very good relations with the three religions, the two religions and the three churches. Sure. But they are under attack of the European Union. The European Union say, "Oh, that's horrible. It's the prime minister is half a dictator." It's completely false. Mm-hmm. He won again the elections with more votes than before, and completely controlled the elections. It's impossible to do any fraud there.
Well, I think what it is when the establishment that's in the media and other places don't like you, forget it. They're never going to give you a break, And he is not, as you know, when you deal with him particularly and others, there's just not if they don't believe in what you're talking about, that's it. We're not going to give you any quarter, and it's a shame.
Yes.
Because where is that fourth? We call it the fourth estate in this country.
Yes.
That's it's supposed to be.
It's probably the first estate now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be. They're supposed to help you to see what's going on, and then you can make a decision as to where you stand on issues. But it's very biased now. It's sad, but we have to fight that trend.
And then ignorance is the most dangerous thing, because even honest persons and well-intentioned will follow bad ideas because they are ignorant.
Right.
And so I believe it's so important to have a good Catholic press and a good Catholic and also Protestants and other Christian denominations that have good films about the faith and about the life of saints. I think most of the good films I see about the history of the church, they're mainly more Protestant than Catholics. Yeah. I'm thinking about the program in the internet, Chosen.
Oh, yeah, it's very well.
Extraordinary program about the life of Jesus.
Yes, I have to agree. I would say it's probably not historically perfect, but yes, it is very, very good. I've enjoyed watching it myself.
Everything that Jesus says, it's historically correct.
Yes.
But then there is the rest conversations going on.
Conversations and maybe some of the chronology, but the essence is very good. I have to agree with that, yeah.
One of the best things I never see, and then also it's free.
Right.
People, if you want to, you pay, but you don't need to pay.
Right.
And it's had absolutely no support of any enterprise, so they're completely free.
Yeah, interesting. That's true. But I think you find some of the most, some of the strongest things out there that really affect you properly are the ones that were done with maybe the lower budgets, but the bigger hearts.
Yes.
And I think I kind of detect that in that series.
And the actors are very interesting because you see by their accents. Some are Jews, others are Arabs, others Palestinians. Some are Indians, many are Indians.
Right, exactly, yes.
Others are African, black Africans.
But the world, it's funny, I think because the Catholic Church grew obviously to what it is in Europe, okay? Yeah. So people will say it's a European church. Well, excuse me, look where it came from. It came from the Middle East. One of the saints we look to be one of our strongest guides is St. Augustine. He was an African.
Yes.
I mean, people don't realize these things. They look, but as time went on, it became, because it was the culture, it grew up, European culture grew up with it and became what it is. But
the Holy Family was Jewish.
They were Jewish, exactly. Yeah, very Semitic. Yeah. So I mean, I think we have to kind of remember that we're Catholic, we're universal, and that's why even in these days when it's kind of sad to see that the West has now our vocations are down and all of that. But then I look at the beauty of what's coming out of Africa with so many of these beautiful vocations. We're getting re-evangelized in Europe and in the United States by the Africans.
Well, and also the Vietnamese. I did see a film about the procession of 13 May in Saigon, so in former South Vietnam. Today, you did see the image of Our Lady on the top of a decorated car full of flowers and then something like 40 nuns in black scooters escorting it.
That's beautiful.
Because the nuns, every nun had a scooter to go to the villages and to visit families and so on, but all black, all very elegant, and they all dressed elegantly. And this is South Vietnam that was conquered by communist North Vietnam some years ago.
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of interesting. Of course, you come from Portuguese royalty, where you understand what the discoveries and the Portuguese, for the size of Portugal, when you look at it, the influence in the world was tremendous with the discoveries. You just came from Timor.
Yes.
This is why we've had them running around New Jersey, New York for the last few days, and without a chance to recover from the jet lag. but
I fall asleep suddenly. I hope I don't fall asleep.
That happens all the time. But it's so beautiful when you think of the influence. One beautiful story you told me 2 years ago, and it's always stayed with me, was when you went to Sri Lanka back, was it in 2019, I believe it was, or 18 or 19? And the story of you commissioned the statue of Our Lady of Fatima that you...
One of the dioceses, of Baticaloa, they asked me, the bishop and the parish priest, one of the parish priests, asked me for a statue of Our Lady of Fatima expressed. Because I proposed, maybe you want a statue of Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception that was at the time of her ancestors was much more important because Fatima didn't exist at the time. They said, "Oh no, we want Fatima." So I ordered a beautiful statue by a very good artist, and I went there and I brought them. It's big as the one you have here, and it was an extraordinary event, full of people, everybody very emotional. Everybody had to take out their shoes. Because in Sri Lanka, when you enter a church, you take out your shoes.
Sure.
And like in the Hindu temples or the Muslim.
It's a culture.
But then, 1 week after, it was Easter Sunday. And in Easter Sunday, the terrorists exploded 3 churches, 2 Catholics and 1 Protestant.
That was big news.
And
happened, yes.
The terrorists had prepared the explosives for a 4th church. It was the one who got the image of Our Lady, but the explosion didn't work.
That's right. Did they find an undetonated bomb?
Yes,
That's
yes,
right. Yeah,
yes.
it's amazing. I mean, Our Lady's protection.
Yes,
and that's what it is. I think people need to see that. I was hoping at the time you had told me the story. I remember I spoke about it and I was hoping that the news would cover that, but no way. They don't want to talk about that. That's miraculous.
Yes.
The lives that were saved that day, and with her protection. I think that's what we have to understand as those who promote, obviously, our faith, Our Lady, and of course the Fatima message, is that there's a great protection in our lives when we devote ourselves to her, when we give her our lives to direct us. We will be protected, and we will be. Maybe not always. Maybe we'll have to suffer some bumps and bruises, but that's okay, But we're doing it under her direction.
Yes, exactly.
And she brings us to obviously to the glory of God. She brings us to the Eucharist. I mean, which is really the essence of our the Catholic faith. Obviously, the first apparitions of Fatima were the angel of peace.
Yes,
he brought communion to the children.
And then the same angel said, "I am the guardian angel of Portugal."
Yes.
And I believe that I can say that the angel of peace was the Archangel Saint Michael, because he was who brought peace to the heaven. Yes. When there's a bunch of, it's a bit of a joke, but I call them the Republican angels who wanted to make a democratic republic in heaven.
Want to make it a democracy, right? God didn't need a democracy. He knew what he had going. No, that's very, very beautiful. But, I always respect the work that you do.
Sometimes I ask, priests are very embarrassed when I ask, who was the first Democrat that you know in history? Was Pontius Pilatus. He said, "Well, this man is innocent, but the people want to condemn him." So, okay, I wash my hands.
I'm gone. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it. Yeah, it's the problem. Think of the great man he would be in history. On the same token, what happened had to happen for the sake of salvation, but it's still it is something like that. Yeah, and there's a lot of talk. I think we've discussed this about his final. After that, how did that affect people like him, who saw what was built after the crucifixion, and it had to.
And his wife tried to save Jesus.
Right, she tried to tell him. Yeah,
I think Priscilla. I
believe that was it. Yeah, and she had misgivings about this. About this just man. So, but anyway, but I guess we're getting close to the end here. We're closing, but I wanted to the fact that that you're able to represent the country like you do, you're able to represent what the royalty truly is about. Okay, what today, I mean, the royalty in the 21st century is different, obviously, but you stand up, you're an ambassador for the culture.
Yes, basically in Europe and outside of Europe, including Japan and Thailand and many countries, I think countries with monarchies are the best democracies, and because the king or the queen, there are many queens in Europe, and they help democracy to work well.
Sure.
They moderate when there are corruption, when there are bad behavior of the politicians. They call them in private and they say, okay, pay attention because the bad things are happening. So the best democracies are the democracies with king and queens nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, then you see, you cannot say that Canada is less democratic than the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same level of democracy, and it's a monarchy.
Yeah, true.
The head of state of Canada is the Queen,
Right.
who is also the Queen of England,
Yes.
and the Queen of Australia and New Zealand and so on.
And our biggest allies, traditionally, as the United States, our biggest allies in the world conflicts have always been Canada and Australia.
Yes, and England.
And of course, England, yes, yeah, absolutely, because that was,
And
well,
New
that's
Zealand,
our parent.
New Zealand, so many
Yes.
so many
yes.
people died in New Zealand to help to work to fight together with the United States.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, because we have that common, I mean, our laws, our Constitution is based very much on, the Magna Carta goes back to all of that,
Yes.
to the where the rights of people were codified, and certainly there was. I mean, we fought a revolution over it, but it was really over to a great deal over economics.
Yes, but also now in Portugal we have a republic since 1910, but I'm very happy that our president and normally prime minister also, and the foreign affairs minister, they work very well with me.
Yes.
And sometimes they ask me to do certain things, like there are countries we have difficult relations with Portugal, and I can help.
Sure.
And I went to Syria. I went to Indonesia during the time Indonesia was almost at war with us because of Timor, occupying Timor. Also, countries that are really problematic. For instance, the only country where I didn't succeed until now in negotiating a peace agreement was Syria.
Sure.
And now I have been in a difficult situation because I am in very good relations with the government and the opposition in Syria. But if I would go there, I will get in the blacklist of the United States Foreign Affairs, because they say who goes to Syria cannot get a visa to come here. So I have to suspend my work with the Syrian.
That's sad. Yeah, that's sad because they should have you go there as
Yes,
an
yes,
ambassador.
exactly.
Thing. Yeah.
And then also we try to work with the Christians in Syria, who are around 10% of the population. And and if the Islamic State would win, we would have really a much worse problem than we have now.
Well, exactly. I mean, because there's not a great track record.
Islamic State, I don't speak about being Islamic country. Islamic State is a terrorist organization.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because, I mean, in those cases, they want to wipe out Christianity.
Yeah.
They want to move Christianity out.
Yeah. They want to expel all the Christians to Lebanon or somewhere else,
Right.
to Europe.
That's right.
Yeah.
We were talking about Russia, and I remember being in Kazan, which is part of the Russian Federation country still, and in Tartistan. And I was always amazed at how they were able to balance. And that was by design. Where now I'm talking probably in 2008 is when I was part of when the icon was returned to Kazan, the icon of Kazan, and we returned the Odessa statue, which was ours. And they had at the time 28 mosques and 28 Orthodox churches in Russia, regulated, because they didn't want one or the other to have more churches. And then, of course, there was that one grand Catholic church. I was there for that dedication, the exaltation of the cross. But the idea was that there would not be there would not be dominance on either side
Yes.
of the churches, And I kind of understood. They knew how to coexist. They had, and so maybe by Muslim standards, they weren't really following what they were supposed to. And by Christian standards, some said maybe they were compromising. But they found a way to coexist. And I think that of course, that goes back to the Russians and the Tartars were traitors many years prior.
Yeah.
That's why that relationship was always there. But I think that, we obviously, our job as Christians is to convert the world, right?
Yeah.
But when I say convert the world, we don't mean to do it at, with a sword. We do it, we bring them, and that's what the Portuguese people did, what your ancestors did, to a great degree, brought the faith to so many countries, to Africa, to Asia,
Yes, exactly.
South America.
Including in Japan.
Yeah,
When
that's right.
there were at a certain time 300,000 Japanese became Catholics.
That's right. Yes, it's only in Portuguese.
But the discoveries, this is something important, because other countries like England or Spain, they would conquer. We would never conquer except if we were under attack.
Right.
In the discoveries, the Portuguese fleet did not use the royal flag of Portugal. They used the flag of the Order of Christ. The Order of Christ was in charge of the discoveries.
Yes.
And it was, the Order of Christ was succeeding after the Knight Templars.
Yes.
When the Knight Templars were extinguished, most of the Templars and all their properties became part of the new order, or the Order of Christ.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think, well, it tells you that was the goal, okay? And I think that's why there is good relationships among many of the former colonies that have been maintained. And anyway, we could probably talk for hours about that, but it's wonderful. I want to really thank you for being with us these days and being with us and doing this show today. Maybe we can follow up next time in Portugal, and we'll go.
No, I have also to say something important. I am really very sorry that I could not organize a visit in the meeting with the Portuguese community of Newark and Elizabeth that I normally meet when I coming here. But this time it was so, I was in the middle of the official visit to Timor,
right,
and then these events, and now I must be back to Portugal. So, but I hope very soon to be able to come back and to pay a visit to the.
You're always welcome
Portuguese
here. You know
community.
that. Love to have you at any point, because last week we had the Portuguese community here on Memorial Day for the Portuguese Day, which is a big event every year, and we had well over 3,000 people here. So it was big. Maybe not quite as big as it was pre-pandemic, but it's growing back again like it was. So yes, maybe you'll be here for that one of these years.
Yes, wonderful. I hope so.
Okay. Well, thank you again for being here, and thank you all for listening. This podcast is produced by the World Apostle of Fatima, USA, and we ask you to subscribe to it, we hope, and to follow us on our website, bluearmy.com, and all of our initiatives. So thank you, and God bless you.